Oh, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Longbourn Literary Society's Society Papers broadcast, episode number 56. I'm Zoe Burton, and I'm here with Leenie Brown. And today we are going to talk about the differences between our first book and our last book. But before we get to that, I have a quote I'm going to share with us, and Lenie's going to share what was added to our pin self-promo post, and we're going to share our news, and then we'll get to our topic. So let me come over here and attempt to show you application window, writing quote, show you our writing quote. Okay, and I don't see me on, I don't know how to find me on YouTube, so I don't even know what you're seeing. Can you guys, Leenie, are we on?
Right now I see me, but we're okay, delayed, then, so I don't know what's.
How about that? It's like I don't even know where to find me on my YouTube. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to give us a disclaimer because, you know, we don't necessarily feel this way. It says almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere. And that was, that quote is attributed to Anne Lamott. I'm not really sure who that is, but she must be a writer. We don't necessarily feel that our first efforts were horrible. Maybe that's a little arrogant, but we don't. So, I mean, I suppose if I had kept my very first one my very first book that I tried to write when I was 14, I suppose if I'd kept that, that might have been terrible. But I don't think that my first book was I Promise To, and I don't think that's terrible. And I know Leenie doesn't think that her first efforts are all that bad.
Well, not terrible anyway.
All right. Well, it's your turn. Well, right. And while you do that, I'm going to try to find us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Look, you click that and you go to my channel. Imagine that.
It is not allowing me to share, so I'm just going to tell you what was there. There wasn't a whole lot that was left. I think there was only one thing.
Share? Did I not unshare?
I don't know.
It doesn't look like I unshare. Sorry.
Let's see. Maybe if I click it this way. Nope. Okay. Anyway, there was only one thing that was left there on our self-promo post, which is still in the announcement section on our board, but after this broadcast, it'll be dropping down and there'll be a new one that'll be going in tomorrow. So LLIDS Journal asked us to share the publication of their journal with everyone. Issue 2.3 has published. This issue also features our maiden collaboration with the Oceanvale Workshop, organized by Karori Mal College, University of Delhi. And there is a link to the ELLIDS.com. So that if you want to check out their journal and all of that sort of thing, you can get that link in the comments of our self-promo post. And that was it.
I'm going to pause you and to let you know that Kimberly is here and Marcia is here. And they both said hi.
Awesome. Okay. I'm trying to follow this on my phone today, and it's not showing me any of that. So you know what? I'm not going to do it on my phone. I'm going to flip over to the computer. So if you hear us before I get the before I get to mute us on the video, that'll be why. I haven't quite figured out everything on here yet.
No, we're doing better though.
Okay, there we go. And it was going much slower on my phone too, so that's awesome. Oh, that's cool.
So now it's time for your news because you were the last one talking.
I was. now I have to get my head back in the game, right? All right. Nothing terribly exciting happened this week. I continued writing on my works in progress. Let's see which one are still being written on. I am writing on Loving Lydia. I have managed to get a chapter of that done, and I got 2 chapters of Kitty Bennett's story, which is A Scandal in Springtime. That's the one that crosses over between Darcy Family Holidays, that series of stories, and the other Penn's Mansfield Park series of stories, because the hero of this story is going to soon be the brother-in-law of Henry Crawford, and by the end of this book, probably, the way it looks right now, he'll be the brother-in-law of Darcy and Elizabeth as well. So it's kind of a tie together there.
Very cool.
If you haven't read at least the first book in that series, Henry to Prove Himself Worthy, that'd be a good place to start so that you can know who. There's Constance Linton, who is sort of becoming a bit of a friend for Kitty so far, and then her brother Trevor, who is the hero of the story, and their aunt Gladys would be good to know. And then there's a few other characters that are in there that Charles and Evelyn Barrett that you might want to know as well going into this new book once it's finally ready. I need to start doing edits on Roger's story, which is His Darling Friend. It is all scheduled and ready to post on my Sweet Tuesdays posts on my blog, but I have not started the actual read through before I send it to the first editor process. Just didn't happen this week. And I have also not started the read through on Apple Blossoms, which is the short story that will follow His Darling Friend on Sweet Tuesdays on my blog once that finishes posting on May 7th. So I need to get going on some of that reading, which I was supposed to do this morning and then did other stuff that I won't need for a while, but you know, it kind of came to mind, so I did it.
There you go.
Yeah. And I think, well, okay, I did have an Austin Authors post this past week. It just seems by the time we get to this, it's like, oh, that was so long ago. Was that really this week? But yeah, I had one this week. So that is still over there. I have to check to see if there are any comments later. I have to remember that. And that was on short stories. And that's it.
Okay. Awesome. Lots of, oh, it's like they know it's Mom's turn.
Know. Yeah.
Jasper's back here. Well, no, he's now. You go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. Just try to be quiet. My updates. Edits are going slow. Edits go slow for me because they always go. They've lately been. I don't want to say always. They've been going slower than I like, because I really have to think some suggestions through before I, make them. Because sometimes it feels like the reader maybe didn't catch my vision for the story. And then I have to sit down and weigh, should I change this and how?
Right.
So it's going a little slow. I still hope, I'd hope to have the book out no later than Monday, but that ain't happening. So we all know how I am with dates. I don't know why. Something in my DNA, probably. But I do hope to have it out some point this week. And I have, I've said before, I have 2 side jobs going. And the one side job I hopefully will be complete by Wednesday or Thursday.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And the race this weekend, the cup race is tonight, which means that tomorrow after church, I have all afternoon, and I'm not going to an actual building for various reasons. Not the least of which is I just cleaned the carpet and I'd really not dogs pee on it again so soon. So, I'll be sitting here watching church anyway. When it's over, I can just start working. But I really hope to have that book out in the next week. My Austin Authors post was the first, and I had like 46 people that commented.
Awesome.
And that we stopped taking. No, honey, I know you're there. You have to wait. It's not time yet. I think he wants to go out. He nudged my hip. So, the announcement from the winner of my Austin Authors, well, winners, because I offered 2 ebooks. It'll be on the blog tomorrow. It should be on the blog tomorrow. On my personal blog, Austin Promises, there was no blog post last week. I was just overwhelmed. Yeah, I had this list as long as my arm, and I was overwhelmed and emotional, and it was just a mess. I was exhausted. I'm not, yesterday all day, and I thought I slept really well, but I was just exhausted all day, and my eyeballs were sore, and I came home after my allergy shots and laid down with a cold rag on my eyes, and I felt better, but I think that I'm just working so hard to get this second side job done. It's a temporary thing. I'm trying to get it done that I'm kind of wearing myself out. I'm like not used to working quite that hard. So there was no blog post. I don't know if there's going to be blog posts this week. I'm leaning towards no. And for several reasons, I feel bad. There's just several reasons that I feel bad about that. I'm only one person. May 20th, which is like a month and 7 days, a month and a week, 5 weeks from now, I'll be at my local library for a reading. I'll be talking about myself and my books. I'm doing a reading. And I'm probably going to talk about why Jane Austen, why I write what I write and what I like about it. And, and I think I mentioned this last week. Pretty sure I did, but I don't remember. But I'm still selling. I sold some sign print books. I sent out 3 packages, and I know 2 have been received by their purchasers, the people that were getting them. And there's one, so if you're watching this and you ordered books and you don't have them by like end of business on Monday, give it to me, give it to like Wednesday and let me know. But I might check the tracking number too, just to make sure. Because one of them was not supposed to get it till like Saturday today, and they got it 2 days ago. So I don't know what was up with that. So I don't have necessarily. I thought I had a new pot bunny. I had a couple, and I was going to try to work them together. And I don't know. I just don't know. I haven't looked at it again. I was really tired the day I looked at it, and maybe it was just like that my brain went. And maybe now that I'm not so, I'm more awake and alert, maybe that will help me trigger something. But that's my news, basically. I feel like that's not a lot of news. And I always feel bad when I don't have a lot of news. But anyway, I'm going to try. I'm paddling below this. I might look kind of serene here. Below the desk, my feet are going, trying to keep up. Anyhow, no, I'm not going to work during the race, but anyway, I didn't wear makeup today, and maybe I should have. I don't know. I don't look so good today. I feel good. I'm not sure I look so good. But anyway, our topic today is how our books have changed from our first book to the last. Now, I didn't really want to go first, but here I am. Because that's the way it flows.
Right.
I think, and I don't even really have an excerpt, just because I'm not even sure I'm correct. My first book was I Promise To. And I don't know, how many people watch and have read it. I assume a large part probably have. It was a novella. It was my very first attempt, and that stewed in my head for months. Before I even was brave enough to write a few words. And then it took encouragement from somebody in a chat room at one of the forums, before I finally said, okay, I'll finish this. And somewhere along the way, before I was even finished with it, somebody made the suggestion about, or somebody had started talking about publishing, Anyway, here's this book. It's not professionally edited, but only one of my books ever has been. And I had 3 or 4 beta readers for different things. So, I mean, in a way, I don't see a whole lot of difference, but the big difference that I see in my books is that when I started, I am heavily influenced. I freely admit I'm heavily influenced by Linda Wells. She's my favorite JAF author. I love memory, adore the Darcy in memory, and I love imperative. And my Darcys kind of tend to be like the Darcys in memory, especially in memory, but a little bit in imperative. And my phrasing is often, especially in my first book, my phrasing is a lot like Linda Wells's phrasing. However, Leenie has taught me a few things about grammar. So I have changed the way I structure sentences. Somewhere along the line, I feel like I kind of relaxed. I mean, I was trying to kind of be like Jane Austen and a lot like Linda Wells, but Linda's influence was more subtle. I was really trying to be like Jane Austen, and I still try to be a little more Regency-ish, more formal in my writing, and I think that's the biggest difference you can see is I'm not as formal-ish in my racing series because that's modern, and my Regencies are Regency. But Leenie taught me some grammar things, and I learned that just because an author might be dear in my heart does not mean that her style is necessarily 100% grammatically correct. And that's the big somewhere along the line, I feel like a shift happened that I didn't even realize right away. Because I was trying to be, trying to write like them, like Jane Austen, and heavy Jane Austen, almost as heavy Linda Wells. And I feel like I've kind of evolved into it's more me.
Right.
I'm fond of introductory phrases. Therefore, comma. Yes. However, comma. Despite this, comma. And the one book I had professionally edited, the girl was like, listen, can we please vary these sentences? So at some point I would like to have my books professionally edited. It just hasn't happened yet. I'm still building my business to that point. And like I said somewhere, well, I've recently, in the last couple of days, read that Amazon is underreported Create Space sales, and that I need to be checking my sale because I don't generally check. Like I count emails, and if I have the same number of deposits, I'm good. All right, and that's the extent of my checking. But then I got some news from the accountant that it wasn't exactly like I knew something along that line was going to happen, but it was more than I expected it to be. And so I don't even remember where I went where I was going with this. I need to pay more attention, I think. I don't know where I was going with this now. It's like, and I've lost it.
You started with professional editing.
Oh, professional editing. Thank you. One day when I have my poop in a group, and I have Uncle Sam is regularly getting his share during the year instead of all in April. And I'm earning enough money that I have, that I feel like I can afford the expenditure because professional editing is expensive. So I hope someday to get my books professionally edited again. But in the meantime, Leenie has taught me a lot about grammar. She's good. So, but that's the big difference, I think, with in my books, is that I think I've kind of suddenly, somewhere along the line, long about 2016 somewhere, I kind of just fell into where I needed to, where I was comfortable with me and my style. And so it has evolved. It's I still try to be a little Jane Austen-y, but I have evolved from mimicking other people to having my own writing style.
Right. Which is a good thing. I mean, that's the way we all grow and become better at what we do.
And I don't think that I was, even that first book, I don't think it was terrible. There's probably mistakes in it.
I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. So anyway,
I found it enjoyable.
I will shut up now and you can talk.
All right. I'll see if I pop up there on the screen or not.
Yeah, I there you are.
Am I there? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this was a hard one for me because I don't know. Every time I write something, I try to improve something or change something, try something new. So from book to book to book, there are probably going to be some shifts and changes. Like you said, I have relaxed even more into my own style since I started, which I think most writers tend to do after you've, written, thousands and thousands of words. I'm over 1 million words now that I've written and published. I mean, there are other words that I've written that probably haven't been published, but yeah, I think you just kind of find your voice and you find the way that you like to do things. And the first book that I ever wrote was For Peace of Mind, but that is not the first book that was published. The first book that was published was Oxford Cottage. For Peace of Mind was just can I do this sort of thing. I wanted to see how long of a story I could write, basically. It's like I'd never written much over 2,000 words in a story form before, so I wanted to see if I could do something that was longer. And so I was just writing to write. There wasn't any idea of ever publishing it. There wasn't any idea of ever sharing it with anyone. I wasn't worried about any Regency etiquette or propriety or word choices or anything like that. It was just about the story, getting a story out. And it took me, that's the longest I've ever spent editing any book, is because I had to go back through and I had to change some propriety issues and I had to change some wording and things like that. And that's why it's not my first published book, because it took longer from that point on, because my husband was like, well, maybe you should start sharing some of this somewhere. And I was afraid he was going to share it for me, and his grammar is not as good as mine. So I figured it would have fewer errors in it if I were the one to put it up and share it with people, because he was tired of hearing me say, oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. No one will like it. And he's like, the only way you're going to know that is if you actually put it out there and see if people like it. So that's why I actually posted for the first time. It was him. So I then, from that point forward, I was sharing it publicly in some way with someone else other than myself. And because of that, my focus shifted. And that's why my books don't require as much editing once the first manuscript is done, is because along the way, I've got in mind that this is going to go out to someone. I need to put down the best that I can the first time, because I really don't like to, I don't like to edit all that much. So, so if I can do it along the way and I can make sure that I'm putting out what I want to begin with, and then I can just polish it up and make it even better after it's done, that's the way that I like to do it. So that's changed a little bit. Um, and then as I was thinking about it, one thing that I actually came up with that I have focused on quite a bit over the course of the years is point of view and limiting point of view. When I started, I had very broad, um, omniscient third person point of view that I would use, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's
That's my
just that's what
favorite.
what I used, and I wanted to learn how to limit it so that I could get more into, I guess, to get it a little deeper because it's a little hard to get deep into what a character is feeling and experiencing when you're using a wide lens camera rather than the narrow lens camera. And you have to also work on shifting between the two because sometimes you want that broad, wide lens, and sometimes you want the more narrow lens of what's going on. And so I've been, trying to work on learning how to do that and evaluating it in my writing and things like that. And as I was thinking about it this morning, I was thinking about Loving Lydia, which is the current Thursday 300 story on my blog, which that has changed too because it started out just as an exercise of writing 300 words every week, just so I would get in practice of writing something. And I was just going to have these random little exercises. Well, the randomness lasted for 1 week. And by the second week, I was like, well, I can't stop there. I need to know more about this. And it became a short story. And then the next one, which was Hope at Dawn, is what it ended up being called. And then the next one was And Then Love, which was going to be, a short story and turned into a novella, which then turned into the first book of a series. And from there, I've been doing series, and some of them are novellas, and some of them are novels, and it all depends on how long the story needs. So there's been some change there as well, because I really discovered that I really like doing sequels and series and things like that because you get to spend your time in a world for a lot longer, and it's just fun for me. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on the Marrying Elizabeth series that I have been posting on my blog. Loving Lydia is the third book in the series. The first book is Confounding Caroline, which I will have a link to that in the show notes afterwards. And that link will take you to a page where you can find Delighting Mrs. Bennet as well. You can click on that and get to wherever that is sold. Okay, so when I was writing last week, I think it was, Zoe and Rose had to hear about it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be changing point of view here or not. And then I ended up it was last week's chapter that I wrote. At the very end of it, I shifted from being just Darcy and Elizabeth point of view to including Colonel Fitzwilliam's point of view for just a little piece. And then the chapter that I wrote this week, I was like, well, I need to stay with him because I haven't, gotten everything that I need to out of this yet. So I stayed with him. So he is now part of the point of view characters. And it really wasn't until this morning that I figured out why, even though my brain is telling me this is wrong, this is not the way that you intended to do this, this is not the way that you read that you're supposed to do things and all of that. Well, that's just, there are no set rules really in writing. They're all guidelines, basically.
Right.
You kind of figure out how a story works, and then you can kind of mess around with it a little bit. The current book that I'm reading for personal development is called Story Trumps Structure. And that's one of the things that he really talks about a lot in there is sometimes you don't follow the 3-act structure because that's not what is best for the story. So anyway, this clicked this morning because I was thinking about how the series started because we're doing, how our books have changed over time. And I was thinking, when I had Confounding Caroline, this is the old cover that was on it. I have a new cover on it now because the place where I was getting the stock images and had the other couples that I wanted to use that were this couple just in different poses, it closed. So I couldn't get those pictures. So I had to come up with a new concept. In this book, we start out with Darcy in London. He's very sad. He is realizing that he probably loves Elizabeth. He's pretty certain of it. He's also realizing how much pain he's possibly putting Bingley through because he's been part of, what's been keeping Bingley from going back to
Right.
Hertfordshire. And it starts in Darcy's point of view, but it also shares it with Bingley. Then it shares it some with Colonel Fitzwilliam and with Jane Bennet and Mr. Bennet, and you have Elizabeth. So you've got all these different points of view in this one book. And I was thinking, oh well, yeah. See, I've grown. I used to do a lot of points of view, and now I'm doing just one. But then it's changed back. So how does that work? Because it seems like I'm going backwards.
Right.
But when I started thinking about the structure of the series and the stories, in that first book, Darcy isn't really set on his path by himself. He has others who are setting him on his path of where he needs to go and helping him to get to where he needs to go, which is the destination at the end of Confounding Caroline. It's to have a second chance with Elizabeth. That is the end goal, and that's what he achieves. So they're courting at the end of that. Okay, so I needed those differing points of view to help me I don't know what the word is, to help me get into who Darcy is and the situation surrounding it and how his thinking is changing and how he's starting to view life differently. That really helped me with that. And then once we're settled into Darcy is on his way to creating his own happiness, the other people step back and allow him and Elizabeth to start working their way through how to be happy together. So for Darcy, the couple of things that I've had him do, and delighting Mrs. Bennet, he's learning to love Mrs. Bennet, not just tolerate her, but love her, and to care about her, Elizabeth's family, and see them in a different way. So that's what he does in Delighting Mrs. Bennet, and it really has to be done through his eyes there. And Elizabeth is also starting to see herself in a different place in her family. She's no longer just the daughter, the dependent person on her father and her mother. She's also now becoming soon the wife and the mother herself. So there's these steps of growth that have to happen, and she has to go through some of that at the same time that Darcy's learning these other things, so that they can grow together and they can become a stronger couple. There's no relationship angst between them at all in this. That's not the point of the series or the story. It's more of a growth type plot. So we get to the end of Delighting Mrs. Bennet, where Darcy has finally gotten Elizabeth to agree to marry him. So they've moved from courtship to they're going to get married. And now we've got a period of time between there and when they're supposed to get married by the end of Loving Lydia. But at the end of Delighting Mrs. Bennet, we've got a new kind of problem that's posed in the fact that Colonel Fitzwilliam declares that he would like to, correspond with Lydia Bennet so long distance dating relationship, if you will, because he has to go away and do some army stuff. So now we've got to see Darcy starts out in a goal of helping Lydia improve because he told his cousin that he would. That was kind of how Richard started out liking Lydia, is that he was trying to see her improve, and over the course of that got to know her and came to love her. And then so far, up until this last 2 chapters of the story, it's only been Darcy and Elizabeth's point of view, because now they're not just seeing themselves in relationship to her parents, but they're seeing themselves in relationship to her sisters, especially for Elizabeth, her younger sister, who has always, been the baby that you take care of. Well, how do I now treat her as an equal, really? A woman who is on the verge of getting married. Yes, she's younger than me, but she's also becoming this woman. And for Darcy, it's he grows from, liking her and caring for her to really feeling for her the same way that he would feel for Georgiana. She becomes a sister to him, and he wants to see, at first he just wanted to see his cousin happy with Lydia at the end of whatever ordeal they were going to go through, while he was still going to be happy with Elizabeth. So he kind of wanted what he had for his cousin. And along the way, that shifts to not only wanting that for his cousin, but also wanting that for Lydia.
Right.
Which is it happens very subtly, but it happens. And when I got to, if you haven't read it, sorry if I tell you any spoilers. When we get to Colonel Fitzwilliam coming to Netherfield after he's been injured, and he's finally has decided that he's going to see Lydia, because at first he doesn't want to. He's been quite injured. He's probably going to lose his ability to serve in the militia in the way that he has been in the past. And he does have visible scars from his ordeal. So he kind of has this, feeling of not being worthy that has been built up in his head, because when you're faced with something that is life altering, you go through a period of, how is my life going to be from here? There's no way that my life is going to be as good as it was. I don't deserve this or that or whatever. And the thought of what you could lose is greater than the reality, because in our minds, sometimes what is happening gets blown up to be much bigger than what it is in real life. It can still be huge in real life, but it's maybe not to the extent that we imagined it. And that's kind of where I was thinking with him. He's put himself in this place where he's just so much less than what he was, which he isn't, because, the outside of a person is not what determines who a person is. It's the inside. And at this certain chapter, he finally agrees that he'll see Lydia. And of course, as soon as he sees Lydia, all of those thoughts, kind of dissipate fairly quickly. There's still a few there. There's still worry about a few things there that we haven't gotten all the way through yet. But at that point, as I'm writing, Darcy takes Elizabeth by the hand and takes her out of the room and leaves me with Richard and Lydia, which means, okay, now I have to be, I can't be in Darcy and Elizabeth's point of view if they're not in the room. So I had to change to Richard's point of view, which is also the next chapter is in his point of view. And it makes sense because Darcy has really done his part. There may be a little bit more that he needs to do, but he's done the part to where it's now, okay, here you go, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
It's yours now. What are you two going to do with this? You know, I've done what I could to get you back here so that you could see her, so that you guys could work this out. Now you have to work it out because I can't do that for you. So to have Darcy in there and doing it for them would not give the strength of relationship
Right.
that is needed because they have to do it themselves. So you've got the first book where Darcy is in a place where he needs that help, and I had to have different points of view in order for him to get to that point. Then he had, you know, a book and a little more of just he and Elizabeth's point of view. And now it's going to shift. And I would say because of this shift, book 4 might be even more points of view than just Darcy and Elizabeth. There could be Mary's point of view
Mm-hmm.
and someone else's
Mary.
point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary's something else, I tell you. So that's something that I've learned along the way that I didn't realize in the beginning. Like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of write, you've got an instinct for why you write, or an instinct to write, and then you figure out why things work as you go along and you're evaluating. I do a lot more evaluating now than I did at the beginning. I mean, I knew that things would work at the beginning and I would write them, but as I've, you know, gone through, you know, looking at the structure of stories and why I might do things the way that I do. And I've had a few instances like this where it's been like, that doesn't seem right. That goes against what people would teach you to do, but it has to happen this way. I just don't know why. I can't tell you why. I just know it does. And then later, as you know, you're doing something completely different, it clicks in and you go, oh, yeah, that's why. Now I get it. I see how it fits in with, you know, the structure of what you're trying to do or the emotion that you're trying to create or the character that's trying to be built, the symbolism that might be taking place. So that's something that's really changed for me too over the course is, you know, a better understanding. I don't understand everything yet. I'm not saying that I do. I will probably never say, oh, I've arrived, because once you arrive, then there's no place to go. And then life gets really boring after that. So that was my thoughts on things.
Well, I as you were talking, I thought about point of view. I'm going to switch back over here. I thought about point of view in my books too, because I know that I am fond of the omniscient third person. And I know in at least one of my books, I had read a book. It was I guess a new adult or young adult. I don't know what it was. Motorcycle club books, and it was one chapter was all the girls' point of view, and one was all the guys, and all the girls and all the guys. And I know I've done that with at least one of my books, and I did it purposely. And then there's another book, and it's one I wrote last year, and I don't remember. I want to say it was To Save Elizabeth, but it might not have been. Where I ended up doing the whole at Rose's suggestion, because Rose was my editor for that one. I did the whole book in Darcy's point of view, and it worked so much better. So I think I've played with point of view, but I don't want to say I've learned different. You know what I mean? I play with it. And I have to watch myself that I don't jump head hop too with my third person omniscient.
Yeah, that was one thing that was really difficult in a few places on this series, especially because in Loving Lydia, I wanted to be able to share what Lydia was feeling because she's a central character in the story, but she's not a point of view character at the beginning. And I'm putting a link to chapter 8 in the show notes. And the reason that I'm putting that link there is that chapter is after Lady Catherine has visited and has not been kind to Lydia. She left Elizabeth alone. And you know that Lydia has to be hurting from that, but I can't get into her head. I have to show it through the other character's point of view. So it's through Elizabeth's point of view. So I did things like I have it open. Let's see. Elizabeth kept one eye on her younger sister and one eye on the door to Netherfield's drawing room. Lydia was sitting sullenly on the couch. She had uncrossed her arms so she could scratch Dash's ear, but her scowl still remained. Okay, so you know how she's feeling by the way that she's sitting. And then later on, Elizabeth sees that she brushes at the corner of her eye, meaning that, oh, she must
be crying.
She must be crying. So there's just little tiny hints there that I had to put in to let you know that she's really struggling with this. And even in I think it's the next chapter, the chapter after, when she's talking with her father and, basically is kind of hoping that Lady Catherine would die in a carriage accident sort of thing. Because that's the way she feels. She gets to say it there, but in this instance, she couldn't really talk about it because there's all these people around. So I had to show it. So that was one place where I thought I had really, it was not easy to come up with that, but it does show you still get that sense of what Lydia's feeling, even though the point of view character didn't hop to her head.
Right.
I didn't allow myself to do that in that case. So that was a growth moment too, I think.
Yeah. For me too, another growth moment has just been showing emotion and not telling. And I still struggle with that. And conversation.
Yes, because she's so bad at conversation. She's been talking for how many minutes now? But she can't write it.
You'll have that.
Yeah. I'm always picking on her about that.
Yep, they do. That's okay. Yeah. That's what friends are for, right? Keep me humble.
Right. No, to help you.
Yes.
Like, you can do this. You have done it before. You talk to people frequently. Just write that down.
Yes. I have to say, what would they say if he was trying to get her attention? I don't know. Just like when I'm writing, just like when I'm writing the race cars books. Okay. And here I was in the first book trying to figure out what Darcy and Elizabeth would talk about, Will and Liz, what they would talk about on a date, because you know how long it's been? Well, that was 2 years ago I wrote that. You know how long it had been since I'd been on a date? Like 20 plus years. So I was like, what do you talk about? I don't know.
Yeah. That does make it challenging.
It does.
Uh-oh.
But anyhow, now that we're done teasing Zoe about her skills.
Yeah.
I do think though that I think that, I mean, your books were always good.
Oh, thank you.
And mine were always okay. But I think that I have grown, even if I think there's ways that maybe I've grown and I don't realize it.
Probably. Yeah. I think we all have.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah, I can see different places. I don't know. But I'm glad that I've grown. I wouldn't want to stagnate. You don't want to be the same, because I've learned. I love to learn, and that was part of, I suppose, the whole thing with me being a teacher is I love to learn. Right. And if I had my druthers 30 years ago, I would have been a professional student. Okay, but you can't earn money live on being a professional student. So that was out the window. But I love to learn, and I love to learn new things, even though sometimes I fight it and I don't understand why I have to do it. and I give you grief about that I have to do it, but I still, I still like to learn, and I hope to never stop improving. I hope that in 10, 15, 20 years, as they, in 50 years, when they pry my pen from my cold, dead hand, okay, or my computer mouse, whatever I happen to be using at that moment, which is when I'm going to stop writing, that I will have improved even more beyond what I am now. Maybe I'll be what is that prize they give? Pulitzer Prize? Pulitzer Prize winning Jaff author.
There we go. Kimberly says that she went back and read the earlier books to see the growth of all three of you. So, yeah, I said, cool. I hope it was a good experience.
I hope it was.
I know I go back to my books sometimes, and I think, I should just sit down and redo this, but I'm not going to, because they're my earlier works, and that's okay. It's okay to be able to see the growth in an author from one book to the next. So, and
the only thing I would
comment there too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Steve had said, please know this is where I ended. Well, I hope I didn't ruin anything by giving away too much or something there, Steve. Sorry.
But I forgot where. Never mind. It must not have been important.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I go back and reread mine. It's okay. It's just my brain. Just I don't know. But I go back and reread mine sometimes, and this. We might as well look at my face when I say this, because it's kind of arrogant. Because my books are pretty doggone good, and sometimes I need. I mean, you write. I write in part because there's not a lot out there I'm interested in reading, so there's a story that I want to see written, so I write. But sometimes, I like to read for an escape, emotional reasons to escape the stress of my life, whatever. And sometimes I go back and reread my books just because they give me that escape, which I think means that I've done my job, because they give me that escape.
Right.
Yep. I should warn you before I move back to you, because you could have been like picking your nose.
Yeah,
and then you've been on camera for all the world to see.
No. Yeah, I was. I had a thought there. Now it's gone. See,
welcome
happens
to my
me
world.
too. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the way I live sometimes. Oh yeah, sometimes I go back and read mine and go, wow, that's better than I remembered. Because usually by the time I'm done and I've published it, I'm just like, oh, I hope somebody actually likes this.
Right.
Because you spend so much time in your critical mind trying to improve it, and you can always see, oh, it could just be a little bit better. It could just be a little bit better. Yeah.
There's things I would fix, like typos and that I would fix. And I may, as I redo covers, which I'm still trying to get to. The plan is to go through and fix typos in the manuscripts and then re-upload with the new cover. So.
Just need about 48 hours in a day to get everything done.
Yes. or a body that's like a little bit younger that can, and maybe a little less chunky, that can handle. I remember going right out of college, probably the first few years after college, even, because I didn't party a whole lot in college. I never really partied at all, but I would go out and like dance in country bars. And I remember one night, I was working 2 or 3 jobs at the time, and I worked a job, and there was a bar right behind it, a country bar. And I remember working 2 jobs that day, going out that night and being out all night dancing. And then going to work the next day. And there's just no way in 2019 that would happen. If I would work 2 different places, I would be going home and laying on the couch. Yeah. So
that's what happens.
I missed those days. That's the kind of energy I need. Even 10, 12 years ago when I lost like 30 pounds, 28 pounds in one summer. And I had all kinds of energy. It was right before I moved up here. So it was in 2008. It was 11 years ago. And I just want that energy back. I wouldn't mind the 154 pounds either, but I just want the energy back.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Some energy back would be good.
But I like to eat too much at this point. So I don't know how that's going to work. So I have to tell everybody, I told Leenie when we got on here, I said, from here up, I want cake. And I want a big piece of it. Chocolate icing, chocolate cake. I want cake. From here down, my body is saying, no cake.
Yeah.
We'll have that. All right. Well, we have been almost an hour.
We have been.
Yeah. We've done pretty good.
We have, and I think we've covered everything that we set out to do.
I think we did. Mm-hmm. So I suppose we should tell everybody goodbye.
I suppose until next week.
Yeah, until next week. So
not next week.
No, that's right. We are not going to have a broadcast next week because it's Easter weekend.
Right.
And we assume that everybody's going to be with their families and doing stuff. And, much as we like doing this, we said we might as well just take a break for the holiday. So it will be 2 weeks. Yeah. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which would be April 27th?
I think so.
I believe so. So anyhow, I'm about to push the stop broadcast button. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. I keep looking over here at my tablet. So thank you, everybody, for coming. We had 4 or 5 viewers. I know one of them was probably me, and one of them might have been you, Leenie.
Probably.
But that leaves us with 3.
Oh, we had 2 people talking with us, so that was awesome.
Yes, and only 1 mystery person. So hey,
that's great.
Awesome. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Bye.